Morning. Good to see everybody here on a beautiful Sunday morning. Isn't the air just nice and clear after the rain, and just smells nice, and just great morning. I have a few announcements dealing with our upcoming schedule. Next week will be the same as we're doing this week. We'll have a Sunday school and a worship service. On June 1st is when the state begins their third phase of the opening. So on June 7th, we'll begin Sunday evening. On June 10th, we will begin our Wednesday evening events, including our fellowship dinner. And then on June 14th, we'll have our church dinner and business meeting following the morning worship service. And we will continue to wear a mask for a while. So again, we have them out front if you forget yours, but it's mainly in populated areas. When we get here, when we get settled in, you can take yours off. If you're in a Sunday school class, go ahead and take yours off. But it really is important. Social distancing is a real issue and is a huge way that the virus gets spread. And I know I think it's here, but anyway, we're going to be careful and follow guidelines. Any other announcements? Remember that July 13th is when we begin our Vacation Bible School. And it looks like, unless something drastically changes, that we'll be able to do that pretty much the way we have before. We'll run a similar schedule. Ruth and I have talked. Chances are, because of issues some parents may have with fixing food, that a lot of the snacks will be prepackaged snacks, where you open plastic or rip the plastic or stomp on it, whatever they want to do. And luckily, little juice boxes, so they can do that to keep any issues from that. So, and that could change next week. Any other announcements? Let's begin our worship service with prayer. Father, thank you so much for a place like this. Father, in ways only you can, that we may let go of everything that's outside of songs and through the word, worship only you. As we begin to slide away at times, help us that we may return. Be a special hour set aside just for you. In your name I pray. Amen. Kathleen couldn't come today, so Ruth and Donnie evangelistic team again today. So our first song is, by the way, we'll probably start bulletins again next week after that. Something like that, whenever I just feel like it. Or whenever I feel guilty enough. So anyway, I keep forgetting you guys have no clue what's. So our first song is The Solid Rock. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, all other ground is sinking sand. When darkness seems to hide his face, I rest on his unchanging grace. In every high and stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, all other ground is sinking sand. His oath, his covenant, his blood, support me in the whelming flood. When all around my stay. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other ground is sinking sand, all other ground is sinking sand. When he shall come with trumpet sound, oh, may I then in him be found, dressed in his righteousness alone, faultless to stand before the throne. On Christ the solid rock I stand, all ground is sinking sand, all other ground is sinking sand. And our next song is There's a Glad New Song. There's a glad new song ringing in my heart, such as angels would sing above. And the whole day long it doth joy impart, 'tis the song of redeeming love. Of his love I shall ever sing, till above I behold the King. Through eternity my glad song shall be of the Savior's redeeming love. When my soul was lost in a starry night, where my feet never ceased to roam, at a dreadful cost Jesus brought me light, all because of redeeming love. Of his love I shall ever sing, till above I behold the King. Through eternity my glad song shall be of the Savior's redeeming love. When at last I stand with the heavenly choir in the light of the throne above, on the golden strand I shall never tire of the song of redeeming love. Of his love I shall ever sing, till above I behold the King. Through eternity my glad song shall be of the Savior's redeeming love. And it's time now for our children's sermon, so can I show this to you? This is a ring, plastic ring. That's not the real question. The question is, where does it start? As you look at this ring, where does it start? Which means you would also know where it ends. You may be confused. So let me end the confusion by answering the question. It doesn't. Solid piece. They molded this in, they just put it in the mold and they poured the plastic in and molded this into one non-starting ending piece. It is just a circle. When people ask, where did God come from? Or how old is God? This is a poor example of it, but there is no start. There is no end. He has never not been, and he always will be. He is never ending. And though it's easy to figure this one out, it's much more difficult when it comes to God. But The word that the Bible uses to describe that is holy. He is uniquely different from everything and everyone else. There is no one like him. There is no one that we can compare him to. He has no time. It means he was there before I was, and he will be there forever with me. The most important part for me is that there's nothing that can happen without God being there, because he always will be. In your life, hopefully many, many more years ahead, you will always know that this God who never ends is a God who does so, never stop being with you, just because he loves you. Lord, I thank you that you love us in ways that you can let us know that you'll always be there with us. Now, we can't really understand what eternity really means to help us again and again and again. Always be there. In your name I pray. And our next song is "'Tis So Sweet to Trust in Jesus." And let's stand as we sing this one. "'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus, just to take him at his word, just to rest upon his promise, just to know thus saith the Lord. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I've proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Oh, how sweet to trust in Jesus, just to trust his cleansing blood, just in simple faith to plunge me neath the healing, cleansing flood. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I've proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Yes, it's sweet to trust in Jesus, just from sin and self to cease, just from Jesus simply taking life and rest and joy and peace. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I've proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. I'm so glad I learned to trust him, precious Jesus, Savior, friend, and I know that he is with me, will be with me to the end. Jesus, Jesus, how I trust him, how I've proved him o'er and o'er. Jesus, Jesus, precious Jesus, oh, for grace to trust him more. Thank you. You may be seated. And by the way, if you're live streaming this, if you didn't stand up, you did it all wrong. And now we'll sing our final hymn, My Faith Looks Up to Thee. My faith looks up to thee, thou Lamb of Calvary, Savior dear. this day be wholly thine. May thy rich grace impart strength to my fainting heart, my zeal inspire, as thou hast died for me. Oh, may my love to thee pure, warm, and changeless be, a living fire. While life's dark maze I tread, and griefs around me spread, be thou my guide. Bid darkness turn to day, wipe sorrow's tears away. Lord, let me ever stray from thee aside. When ends life's transient dream, when death's cold soul and stream shall o'er me rule, bless Savior, then in love, fear and distrust remove. Oh, bear me safe above a ransom soul. And it's time now for our offering. And again, wish you there's an offering plate back that you can put your offering in on your way out this morning, or you can get online at fbcyril.org, and you can get on the giving tab, and it will take you to a page, and you end up going to PayPal, and you can give through that, or you can give through our mail at Post Office Box 153 in Cyril 73029. And though we are not taking up an offering, we are having offertory. Thank you, Ruthie. Our scripture passage this morning, Psalm chapter 20, verse 7. I am beginning a series on Psalms in the 20s. Psalm 20 through 29, I usually just taking one verse from each psalm, and this one is Psalm chapter 20, verse 7. It is one of my favorite verses. I have a box that I look at every now and then. It's divided up by days, and it has quotes from people over the last decades and Bible verses that have had impact in my heart. 20 verse 7, one of those. That's what I'm going to look at today. Verse says, some boast in chariots, some boast in horses. We will boast in the name of the Lord our God. Chariots back then were of extraordinary importance. Now, this was written by David. As a matter of fact, all the Psalms in the 20s were written by David. And it's almost certainly written by David before he became king. He knew then, as everyone did, the importance of chariots. Chariots back in that day were like fighter airplanes, fighter jets. I mean, they could come in and like strafe people. They would normally had two people in it. One would be a driver, and the other guy would have a bow and arrows and small spears. And one of the things they would do is they'd send their foot soldiers forward, and then as they went forward, if there was any kind of break, then they could go in and they could cut through there, and they'd pull their spears out. And as they're driving fast by these guys standing, they're blowing like that. And I'm not talking 5, 10 chariots here. We're talking 100-200 chariots here. Sometimes more. Flying through there, just going like that. And the people, I mean, you couldn't swing at a club with them. They're going too fast, and they'd come by and they'd do that. They were also kind of like moving artillery, because they could also be back behind it, moving like this, and they'd pull their bows and arrows out. And they'd go firing them off at the guys in there. We're talking hundreds and hundreds. And they'd be moving like this, so you couldn't shoot at them because they're moving like that. And I mean, they're just flying like that, shooting like crazy. If you had better equipment back then as now, you have a much better chance of defeating your foe. So chariots, incredibly important. Horses. Now, I don't know much about horses. I'll probably have Calvin come and talk about this, but I think I know this much. Horses are faster than people. And so when they're out there on their horses, they had cavalry. As a matter of fact, cavalry eventually replaced chariots because they're much more maneuverable and have guys that were good at it and shoot off the horses. And they could go in, they could start a charge, they could break through lines. If they started to win, people started to spread out like that, they could chase them down and kill them out there. These were unbelievably important. So much so that when the Assyrians came to and surrounded Jerusalem, they said, my master, the guy who was talking to the Jews, said, my master has 400 chariots with horses. He will give them to you if you command them. They couldn't. They knew they were done because your enemy could give you more than you ever had. But when God gave the law to Moses, in Deuteronomy, Moses says, again, you only have God's king, says, but when you get into the land and you want to have a king like everybody else, then it must be a king of God's own choosing. This king is not to accumulate for himself chariots. The two greatest powerful things on a field of battle. God says you're not to acquire for yourself chariots, move forward a long time. Saul becomes king. First king they've ever had. He follows that. You don't find anywhere in the writings where he accumulated chariots or horses. Then David becomes king. An interesting thing about David, and the one who wrote, "Some trust in chariots, some trust in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God." If you look, and I think it's interesting to do and important to do, David, before he becomes king, Saul is after him. Saul's trying to kill him. Saul's trying to do all this stuff. And David leaves and goes away from a town where he's got a bunch of convicts and thieves and cutthroats or his men. And he takes them out of Ziklag and he goes to run against their enemy. While he is gone, the Amalekites come through and they destroy the town and take everyone captive. So when David comes back, what he sees is the city on fire, everyone gone, including his wife and children. The men sit down and mourn. And remember, these were not people out of some sort of military academy with honor. The Bible says he picked up the ruffians. He picked up the guys no one else wanted. And after all that David had done for them, the way he had led them and guided them and given them this land, and they had something of substance, they looked at David and they began to wonder if they needed to kill him. Because they had lost their houses, they had lost their families, assuming that they were dead. David asked God, should I go after the Amalekites or should I stay? Now that would sound like a dumb question. Of course you go after them. These guys are going to kill you. Let's go get them, and away we go. David asks, should I go after them or not? God said, go after them and you will recover everything. David does. The Philistines are coming at them. This is when David is king. And the Philistines were their main issue that they had, and they're coming at him, and David says, should I go out to do battle? Now, if he doesn't go out and do battle, they overrun him. Should I go out and do battle, or should I stay? And God says, you should go out and do battle, but wait until you hear the sound of marching in the tops of the trees, and then go do battle. You know what David did? David waited until he heard the sound of marching in the tops of the trees. Then he went to go do battle. No large numbers of horses. No chariots that we know of at all. He trusted in the name of the Lord his God. And God brought him to places that he never could have dreamed. Provided for Israel a kingdom like they had never known before. And left David at the end of his days with every boundary secure. When Solomon became king, Solomon never once had to go to war because the boundaries were so secure. Because David trusted the name of the Lord his God. That's not always an easy yes or no question. During this time of the COVID virus, whenever this is over with, I just have to find something else to talk about, I guess. But as we go through this, there was a pastor in one of the Caribbean islands that said that he could cure COVID. All he had to do is lay hands on them. And he could cure anyone of COVID. Guaranteed. He died last week of coronavirus. A church in Louisiana, a large church, met against regulation they had, as you may recall, at one point Louisiana was a hot spot. the greeter, died of COVID-19. Because he said, we've cured AIDS, we've cured cancer. This virus doesn't stand a chance against us. Some trust in chariots, trust in the name of the Lord our God. It is important to remember, God never gives us a blank check anywhere. God never says, you say these words, it works. God never gives us that which he did not give to his own Son. Because you never, ever, once, ever heard Jesus say anything like those two guys said. Because that comes from arrogance. It is tempting God. Do you remember the story, not exactly remember when, do you remember the story, second temptation of Jesus by Satan? Takes him up to the top of the temple and says, jump down from here and God will send his angels to take care of you because it is written, he will not allow your foot to strike a stone. Did you know that that verse is in the Old Testament? Satan's not an idiot. He quoted from the Old Testament. Jesus looks at him and says, it is also written, you shall not test the Lord your God. To trust in God isn't to testing. To trust in God is to be willing to listen well enough that I know what he has for me. The things that I need to do and the things that I don't need to do, I need to be willing to trust in him so that I don't have to have anything else. Now, if I'm walking down off of this platform, trip and fall, there's always that chance. And if my leg bends like this, do not come up and lay hands on me. I want you calling 911. It's nice to have a couple of nurses in here. I want an ambulance. And I don't care if people think it's not an important surgery done at this time. It is to me. I want it taken care of because God works in a number of different ways. And to allow him to work in his ways rather than mine. To fulfill the things that he can show that does things that no one else can. So that I can trust him to guide me to the things I need done. I mentioned to you that David left Solomon. Solomon would never have to build an army up. He didn't want to. Solomon, 2 Chronicles 1:14, tells about how he bought 1,400 chariots. It even tells how much he paid for each. And had 12,000 charioteers take care of the chariots. He had what they called chariot cities that he kept them in. He had no border to defend. He had more money because it says in the same passage that he made silver like brass, that gold was abundant and everywhere. But even though he knew, don't enlarge yourself with chariots. Don't add to yourself horses. Did anyway. And this is where I'm not sure where this third one correlates to this. Because I don't know if Solomon built up his chariots and horses first, or if he built up the number of wives that he had first. Both of them took his heart away from God. Because now he could look out and go, who can come against me? Who can come against me? I've got 1,400 chariots. I've got 12,000 men who are trained to use them. And could look at his boundaries and say, I am secure because I have put for myself chariot cities capable of taking care of all of my kingdom's needs. I think it became first. And I think as he began to do that, it turned his heart, and that's when he began to add hundreds of wives and providing for them in Jerusalem places to worship their gods. So that whenever he died and he left to his son Rehoboam the kingdom, in weeks divided in two, with the lesser part coming down to Solomon's son. See, whenever I start getting away from my dependence on God, whenever I start looking to the other things and think, this will take care of me, my bank account, what I own, the things I can do, my talents, my abilities, people around me, the things that are capable of, my plans, the issues I have, my intelligence, whenever I think I've got any of this stuff that will take me and everything will be secure because of it, it is then that I begin building up for myself what would have been here, chariots and horses. It's then that I begin to say, well, I can do this, I can handle this, I have this. It is Jesus' parable of the man who was wealthy. And he brought in the produce, and it was more than his barns could hold. So he said, let's build more barns and eat and drink and be merry. Jesus says, you fool, for tonight your soul will be required of you. Anytime I step away from my complete and total dependence on God, allowing him to do whatever he wants and do it in ways he ever desires, it's then that this verse is irritating. I was like, well, I need this, and I need this, and I got to have this. And we turn our hearts from God, depend on things that will never last. This ring, I don't know if God is upset because I used a ring to describe him or not. He'll let me know. And if he tells you, he'll let me know. No beginning, no. My God, no beginning is everything. Is capable of getting me through any circumstance in life. And he will put in place. And I believe that he does so in ways that when I get to heaven, I will be astounded for eternity. How he was able to do things when I thought I was doing it. I was so smart when he was so wise. It is depending on that, period. Nothing else. Allowing him to use chariots and horses if he so desires. To use the sound of marching in the tops of trees. Wherever he so desires, so that the bottom line is, he is glorified. Because that has to be the result. It can't be how smart I was or how lucky I was. It can't be if I fall down off of here and I break my leg, and if I do. That's the last time I'm ever using that illustration. I come down and break my leg. And I get to heaven, God may see, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Break my leg. You know that God can be glorified through all that goes through that? It's supposed to be. He has already provided for ways to do that. Circumstances you face today, some of them have broken your heart. Some of them you struggle with, and it seems like there is no answer. It seems like there is no end. Difficult as you've got, He is in control. Things for the future. Uncertainties that you may have, decisions that need to be made that you don't know, and frustrations you've got, and things that are going on, and people in your lives who mean the world to you that are struggling with things, and you're trying to deal with that and how to handle those situations, and how can I do that? Guys, if I've got all the chariots, if I've got all the horses, it doesn't matter. I don't have God. If I don't have His guidance, if I don't have His leading, if I don't have His wisdom. Because the circumstances in my life and the circumstances in the lives of those who I love more than life itself, only God can handle. Only God can do. Which is one reason why this verse has meant so much to me over the last decades. Because I need reminded again and again and again. Don't ever trust in chariots. Don't ever trust in horses. Only trust in the name of the Lord your God. Father, thank you so much for the ways you have of taking care of things that are way past my comprehension, way past any way I can notice, but you do it anyway. Thank you, Father, for the things in my future that I can't see that you do and the way that you have prepared for them. I was happy to ask each of us that as we come before you and as we are with you, that we may let go of everything that steps between. We may with you see you do all things. Name I pray. Amen. Tomorrow is Memorial Day. A little early, but tomorrow is Memorial Day. It is an important time to remember those families who have passed away, those who are special to us. Passed away is a time where many go out to cemeteries and place flowers on them. Way of showing love and remembering who they were. That's not the original intent of Memorial Day. It was to remember those who have fought and died, so that the freedoms that we have, that I have paid basically no price for, but have been provided for me by those who in our military paid with their lives, have paid with their careers, paid many at the cost to their families. Time to remember and to be grateful to those who have gone before, as well as those who are currently serving. So to end their service,